CostasNarrativeXP presents The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Chapter 80. The Accusation. Mr. d'Avrigny soon restored the magistrate to consciousness, who had looked like a second corpse in that chamber of death. "Oh, death is in my house," cried Villefort. "Say, rather, cry," replied the doctor. "Mr. d'Avrigny," cried Villefort, "I cannot tell you all I feel at this moment. Terror, grief, madness." "Yes," said Mr. d'Avrigny, with an imposing calmness, "but I think it is now time to act. I think it is time to stop this torrent of mortality. I can no longer bear to be in possession of these secrets without the hope of seeing the victims and society generally revenged." Villefort cast a gloomy look round him. "In my house," murmured he, "in my house." "Come, magistrate," said Mr. d'Avrigny, "show yourself a man. As an interpreter of the law, do honor to your profession by sacrificing your selfish interests to it." "You make me shudder, doctor. Do you talk of a sacrifice?" "I do." "Do you then suspect anyone?" "I suspect no one. Death raps at your door. It enters, it goes, not blindfolded, but circumspectly, from room to room. Well, I follow its course, I track its passage, I adopt the wisdom of the ancients, and feel my way, for my friendship for your family and my respect for you are as a twofold bandage over my eyes. Well?" "Oh, speak, speak, doctor. I shall have courage." "Well, sir, you have in your establishment, or in your family, perhaps one of the frightful monstrosities of which each century produces only one. Locusta and Agrippina, living at the same time, were an exception, and proved the determination of Providence to effect the entire ruin of the Roman Empire, sullied by so many crimes. Brunhilde and Fredegund were the results of the painful struggle of civilization in its infancy, when man was learning to control mind, were it even by an emissary from the realms of darkness. All these women had been, or were, beautiful. The same flower of innocence had flourished, or was still flourishing, on their brow, that is seen on the brow of the culprit in your house." Villefort shrieked, clasped his hands, and looked at the doctor with a supplicating air, but the latter went on without pity. "Seek whom the crime will profit," says an axiom of jurisprudence. "Doctor," cried Villefort. "Alas, doctor, how often has man's justice been deceived by those fatal words? I know not why, but I feel that this crime—" "You acknowledge, then, the existence of the crime?" "Yes, I see too plainly that it does exist. But it seems that it is intended to affect me personally. I fear an attack myself, after all these disasters." "Oh, man," murmured d'Avrigny, "the most selfish of all animals, the most personal of all creatures, who believes the earth turns, the sun shines, and death strikes for him alone, an ant cursing God from the top of a blade of grass. And have those who have lost their lives lost nothing? Mr. de Saint-Méran, Madame de Saint-Méran, Mr. Noirtier." "How, Mr. Noirtier?" "Yes. Think you it was the poor servant's life was coveted? No, no. Like Shakespeare's Polonius, he died for another. It was Noirtier the lemonade was intended for. It is Noirtier, logically speaking, who drank it. The other drank it only by accident, and although Barrois is dead, it was Noirtier whose death was wished for." "But why did it not kill my father?" "I told you one evening in the garden after Madame de Saint-Méran's death, because his system is accustomed to that very poison, and the dose was trifling to him. which would be fatal to another, because no one knows, not even the assassin, that for the last 12 months I have given Monsieur Noirtier brucine for his paralytic affection, while the assassin is not ignorant, for he has proved that brucine is a violent poison. "Oh, have pity, murmured Villefort, wringing his hands. "Follow the culprit's steps. He first kills Monsieur de Saint-Méran." "Oh, doctor!" "I would swear to it. What I heard of his symptoms agrees too well with what I have seen in the other cases." Villefort ceased to contend. He only groaned. "He first kills Monsieur de Saint-Méran," repeated the doctor. "Then Madame de Saint-Méran. A double fortune to inherit." Villefort wiped the perspiration from his forehead. "Listen attentively." "Alas," stammered Villefort, "I do not lose a single word." "Monsieur Noirtier," resumed Monsieur d'Avrigny in the same pitiless tone, "Monsieur Noirtier had once made a will against you, against your family, in favor of the poor. In fact, Monsieur Noirtier is spared, because nothing is expected from him. But he has no sooner destroyed his first will and made a second, than, for fear he should make a third, he is struck down. The will was made the day before yesterday, I believe. You see, there has been no time lost." "Oh, mercy, Monsieur d'Avrigny." "No mercy, sir. The physician has a sacred mission on earth, and to fulfill it he begins at the source of life, and goes down to the mysterious darkness of the tomb. When crime has been committed, and God, doubtless in anger, turns away his face, it is for the physician to bring the culprit to justice." "Have mercy on my child, sir," murmured Villefort. "You see, it is yourself who have first named her, you, her father." "Have pity on Valentine. Listen, it is impossible. I would as willingly accuse myself, Valentine, whose heart is pure as a diamond or a lily." "No pity, procureur. The crime is flagrant. Mademoiselle herself packed all the medicines which were sent to Monsieur de Saint-Méran, and Monsieur de Saint-Méran is dead. Mademoiselle de Villefort prepared all the cooling draughts which Madame de Saint-Méran took, and Madame de Saint-Méran is dead. Mademoiselle de Villefort took from the hands of Barrois, who was sent out, the lemonade which Monsieur Noirtier had every morning, and he has escaped by a miracle. Mademoiselle de Villefort is the culprit. She is the poisoner. To you, as the king's attorney, I denounce Mademoiselle de Villefort. Do your duty." "Doctor, I resist no longer. I can no longer defend myself. I believe you. But, for pity's sake, spare my life, my honor." "Monsieur de Villefort," replied the doctor, with increased vehemence, "there are occasions when I dispense with all foolish human circumspection. If your daughter had committed only one crime, and I saw her meditating another, I would say, warn her, punish her. Let her pass the remainder of her life in a convent, weeping and praying. If she had committed 2 crimes, I would say, here, Monsieur de Villefort, is a poison that the prisoner is not acquainted with, one that has no known antidote, quick as thought, rapid as lightning, mortal as the thunderbolt. Give her that poison, recommending her soul to God, and save your honor and your life, for it is yours she aims at. And I can picture her approaching your pillow with her hypocritical smiles and her sweet exhortations. Woe to you, Monsieur de Villefort, if you do not strike first. This is what I would say had she only killed 2 persons, but she has seen 3 deaths, has contemplated 3 murdered persons, has knelt by 3 corpses. To the scaffold with the poisoner. To the scaffold. Do you talk of your honor? Do what I tell you, and immortality awaits you." Villefort fell on his knees. "Listen," said he. "I have not the strength of mind you have, or rather that which you would not have, if instead of my daughter Valentine, your daughter Madeleine were concerned." The doctor turned pale. "Doctor, every son of woman is born to suffer and to die. I am content to suffer and to await death." "Beware," said Monsieur d'Avrigny. "It may come slowly. You will see it approach after having struck your father, your wife, perhaps your son." Villefort, suffocating, pressed the doctor's arm. "Listen," cried he. "Pity me. Help me. No, my daughter is not guilty. If you drag us both before a tribunal, I would still say, no, my daughter is not guilty. There is no crime in my house. I will not acknowledge a crime in my house. For when crime enters a dwelling, it is like death. It does not come alone. Listen, what does it signify to you if I am murdered? Are you my friend? Are you a man? Have you a heart? No, you are a physician. Well, I tell you I will not drag my daughter before a tribunal and give her up to the executioner. The bare idea would kill me, would drive me like a madman to dig my heart out with my fingernails. And if you were mistaken, doctor, if it were not my daughter, if I should come one day, pale as a spectre, and say to you, 'Assassin, you have killed my child,' hold, if that should happen, although I am a Christian, Mr. d'Avrigny, I should kill myself." "Well," said the doctor, after a moment's silence, "I will wait." Villefort looked at him as if he had doubted his words. "Only," continued Mr. d'Avrigny, with a slow and solemn tone, "if anyone falls ill in your house, if you feel yourself attacked, do not send for me, for I will come no more. I will consent to share this dreadful secret with you, but I will not allow shame and remorse to grow and increase in my conscience, as crime and misery will in your house." "Then you abandon me, doctor?" "Yes, for I can follow you no farther, and I only stop at the foot of the scaffold. Some further discovery will be made, which will bring this dreadful tragedy to a close. Adieu." "I entreat you, doctor." "All the horrors that disturb my thoughts make your house odious and fatal. Adieu, sir." One single word more, doctor. You go, leaving me in all the horror of my situation, after increasing it by what you have revealed to me. But what will be reported of the sudden death of the poor old servant?" "True," said Mr. d'Avrigny. "We will return." The doctor went out first, followed by Mr. de Villefort. The terrified servants were on the stairs and in the passage where the doctor would pass. "Sir," said d'Avrigny to Villefort, so loud that all might hear, "poor Barrois has led too sedentary a life of late. Accustomed formerly to ride on horseback or in a carriage to the four corners of Europe, the monotonous walk around the armchair has killed him. His blood has thickened. He was stout, had a short, thick neck. He was attacked with apoplexy, and I was called in too late. By the way," added he in a low tone, "take care to throw away that cup of syrup of violets in the ashes." The doctor, without shaking hands with Villefort, without adding a word to what he had said, went out, amid the tears and lamentations of the whole household. The same evening all Villefort's servants, who had assembled in the kitchen and had a long consultation, came to tell Madame de Villefort that they wished to leave. No entreaty, no proposition of increased wages could induce them to remain. To every argument they replied, "We must go, for death is in this house." They all left, in spite of prayers and entreaties, testifying their regret at leaving so good a master and mistress, and especially Mademoiselle Valentine, so good, so kind, and so gentle. Villefort looked at Valentine as they said this. She was in tears, and, strange as it was, in spite of the emotions he felt at the sight of these tears, he looked also at Madame de Villefort, and it appeared to him as if a slight gloomy smile had passed over her thin lips, like a meteor seen passing inauspiciously between two clouds in a stormy sky. Chapter 81. The Room of the Retired Baker. The evening of the day on which the Count of Morcerf had left Danglars' house with feelings of shame and anger at the rejection of the projected alliance, Mr. Andrea Cavalcanti, with curled hair, moustaches in perfect order, and white gloves which fitted admirably, had entered the courtyard of the banker's house in Rue de la Chaussée-d'Antin. He had not been more than 10 minutes in the drawing-room before he drew Danglars aside into the recess of a bow window, and, after an ingenious preamble, related to him all his anxieties and cares since his noble father's departure. He acknowledged the extreme kindness which had been shown him by the banker's family, in which he had been received as a son, and where, besides, his warmest affections had found an object on which to centre in Mademoiselle Danglars. Danglars listened with the most profound attention. He had expected this declaration for the last 2 or 3 days, and when at last it came his eyes glistened as much as they had lowered on listening to Morcerf. He would not, however, yield immediately to the young man's request, but made a few conscientious objections. "Are you not rather young, Monsieur Andrea, to think of marrying?" "I think not, sir," replied Monsieur Cavalcanti. "In Italy, the nobility generally marry young. Life is so uncertain that we ought to secure happiness while it is within our reach." "Well, sir," said Danglars, "in case your proposals, which do me honor, are accepted by my wife and daughter, by whom shall the preliminary arrangements be settled? So important a negotiation should, I think, be conducted by the respective fathers of the young people." "Sir, my father is a man of great foresight and prudence. Thinking that I might wish to settle in France, he left me at his departure, together with the papers establishing my identity, a letter promising, if he approved of my choice, 150,000 livres per annum from the day I was married. So far as I can judge, I suppose this to be a quarter of my father's revenue." "I," said Danglars, "have always intended giving my daughter 500,000 francs as her dowry. She is, besides, my sole heiress. All would then be easily arranged if the Baroness and her daughter are willing. We should command an annuity of 175,000 livres. Supposing, also, I should persuade the Marquis to give me my capital, which is not likely, but still is possible, we would place these 2 or 3 millions in your hands, whose talents might make it realize 10%. I never give more than 4%, and generally only 3.5%, but to my son-in-law I would give 5%, and we would share the profits." "Very good, father-in-law," said Cavalcanti, yielding to his low-born nature, which would escape sometimes through the aristocratic gloss with which he sought to conceal it. Correcting himself immediately, he said, "Excuse me, sir. Hope alone makes me almost mad. What will not reality do?" "But," said Danglars, who, on his part, did not perceive how soon the conversation, which was at first disinterested, was turning to a business transaction, "there is, doubtless, a part of your fortune your father could not refuse you." "Which?" asked the young man. "That you inherit from your mother." "Truly, from my mother, Leonora Costinari." "How much may it amount to?" "Indeed, sir," said Andrea, "I assure you I have never given the subject a thought, but I suppose it must have been at least 2 millions. Danglars felt as much overcome with joy as the miser who finds a lost treasure, or as the shipwrecked mariner who feels himself on solid ground instead of in the abyss which he expected would swallow him up. "Well, sir," said Andrea, bowing to the banker respectfully, "may I hope?" "You may not only hope," said Danglars, "but consider it a settled thing, if no obstacle arises on your part." "I am indeed rejoiced," said Andrea. "But," said Danglars thoughtfully, "how is it that your patron, Monsieur de Monte Cristo, did not make his proposal for you?" Andrea blushed imperceptibly. "I have just left the count, sir," said he. "He is, doubtless, a delightful man, but inconceivably peculiar in his ideas. He esteems me highly. He even told me he had not the slightest doubt that my father would give me the capital instead of the interest of my property. He has promised to use his influence to obtain it for me, but he also declared that he never had taken on himself the responsibility of making proposals for another, and he never would. I must, however, do him the justice to add that he assured me, if ever he had regretted the repugnance he felt to such a step, it was on this occasion, because he thought the projected union would be a happy and suitable one. Besides, If he will do nothing officially, he will answer any questions you propose to him. And now, continued he, with one of his most charming smiles, having finished talking to the father-in-law, I must address myself to the banker. And what may you have to say to him? Said Danglars, laughing in his turn. That the day after tomorrow I shall have to draw upon you for about 4,000 francs, but the Count, expecting my bachelor's revenue could not suffice for the coming month's outlay, has offered me a draft for 20,000 francs. It bears his signature, as you see, which is all sufficient. Bring me 1,000,000 such as that, said Danglars. I shall be well pleased. Putting the draft in his pocket, fix your own hour for tomorrow, and my cashier shall call on you with a cheque for 80,000 francs. At 10 o'clock, then, if you please. I should like it early, as I am going into the country tomorrow. Very well, at 10 o'clock. You are still at the Hôtel des Princes? Yes. The following morning, with the banker's usual punctuality, the 80,000 francs were placed in the young man's hands, as he was on the point of starting, after having left 200 francs for Caderousse. He went out chiefly to avoid this dangerous enemy, and returned as late as possible in the evening. But scarcely had he stepped out of his carriage when the porter met him with a parcel in his hand. Sir, said he, that man has been here. What man? Said Andrea carelessly, apparently forgetting him whom he but too well recollected. Him to whom your Excellency pays that little annuity. Oh, said Andrea, my father's old servant. Well, you gave him the 200 francs I had left for him? Yes, your Excellency. Andrea had expressed a wish to be thus addressed. But, continued the porter, he would not take them. Andrea turned pale, but as it was dark his pallor was not perceptible. What? He would not take them? Said he with slight emotion. No, he wished to speak to your Excellency. I told him you were gone out, and after some dispute he believed me and gave me this letter, which he had brought with him already sealed. Give it me, said Andrea, and he read by the light of his carriage lamp. You know where I live. I expect you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Andrea examined it carefully, to ascertain if the letter had been opened, or if any indiscreet eyes had seen its contents, but it was so carefully folded that no one could have read it, and its seal was perfect. Very well, said he. Poor man, he is a worthy creature. He left the porter to ponder on these words, not knowing which most to admire, the master or the servant. Take out the horses quickly, and come up to me, said Andrea to his groom. In 2 seconds the young man had reached his room and burnt Caderousse's letter. The servant entered just as he had finished. You are about my height, Pierre, said he. I have that honor, your Excellency. You had a new livery yesterday? Yes, sir. I have an engagement with a pretty little girl for this evening, and do not wish to be known. Lend me your livery till tomorrow. I may sleep, perhaps, at an inn. Pierre obeyed. 5 minutes later, Andrea left the hotel, completely disguised, took a cabriolet, and ordered the driver to take him to the Cheval Rouge at Picpus. The next morning he left that inn as he had left the Hôtel des Princes, without being noticed, walked down the Faubourg Saint-Antoine, along the boulevard to Rue Ménilmontant, and stopping at the door of the third house on the left, looked for someone of whom to make inquiry in the porter's absence. For whom are you looking, my fine fellow? Asked the fruiteress on the opposite side. Monsieur Pailleton, if you please, my good woman, replied Andrea. A retired baker? Asked the fruiteress. Exactly. He lives at the end of the yard, on the left, on the 3rd story. Andrea went as she directed him, and on the 3rd floor he found a hare's paw, which, by the hasty ringing of the bell, it was evident he pulled with considerable ill temper. A moment after, Caderousse's face appeared at the grating in the door. Ah, you are punctual, said he, as he drew back the door. Confound you and your punctuality, said Andrea, throwing himself into a chair in a manner which implied that he would rather have flung it at the head of his host. Come, my little fellow, don't be angry. See, I have thought about you. Look at the good breakfast we are going to have, nothing but what you are fond of. Andrea, indeed, inhaled the scent of something cooking, which was not unwelcome to him. Hungry as he was, it was that mixture of fat and garlic peculiar to Provençal kitchens of an inferior order, added to that of dry fish, and above all, the pungent smell of musk and cloves. These odors escaped from 2 deep dishes which were covered and placed on a stove, and from a copper pan placed in an old iron pot. In an adjoining room, Andrea saw also a tolerably clean table prepared for 2 bottles of wine sealed, the one with green, the other with yellow, a supply of brandy in a decanter, and a measure of fruit in a cabbage leaf, cleverly arranged on an earthenware plate. "What do you think of it, my little fellow?" said Caderousse. "Aye, that smells good. You know, I used to be a good cook. Do you recollect how you used to lick your fingers? You were among the first who tasted any of my dishes, and I think you relished them tolerably." While speaking, Caderousse went on peeling a fresh supply of onions. "But," said Andrea, ill-temperedly, "by my faith, if it was only to breakfast with you that you disturbed me, I wish the devil had taken you." "My boy," said Caderousse sententiously, "one can talk while eating. And then, you ungrateful being, you are not pleased to see an old friend? I am weeping with joy." He was truly crying, but it would have been difficult to say whether joy or the onions produced the greatest effect on the lacrymal glands of the old innkeeper of the Pont du Gard. "Hold your tongue, hypocrite," said Andrea. "You love me?" "Yes, I do. Or may the devil take me. I know it is a weakness," said Caderousse, "but it overpowers me." "And yet it has not prevented your sending for me to play me some trick." "Come," said Caderousse, wiping his large knife on his apron. "If I did not like you, do you think I should endure the wretched life you lead me? Think for a moment. You have your servant's clothes on. You therefore keep a servant. I have none, and am obliged to prepare my own meals. You abuse my cookery because you dine at the table d'hôte of the Hôtel de France or the Café de Paris. Well, I too could keep a servant. I too could have a Tilbury. I too could dine where I like. But why do I not? Because I would not annoy my little Benedetto. Come, just acknowledge that I could, eh?" This address was accompanied by a look which was by no means difficult to understand. "Well," said Andrea, "admitting your love, why do you want me to breakfast with you?" "That I may have the pleasure of seeing you, my little fellow." "What is the use of seeing me after we have made all our arrangements?" "Dear friend," said Caderousse, "are wills ever made without codicils? But you first came to breakfast, did you not? Well, sit down, and let us begin with these pilchards and this fresh butter, which I have put on some vine leaves to please you. Wicked one. Ah, yes, you look at my room, my 4 straw chairs, my images, 3 francs each. But what do you expect? This is not the Hôtel de France. Come, you are growing discontented. You are no longer happy. You, who only wish to live like a retired baker." Caderousse sighed. "Well, what have you to say? You have seen your dream realized." "I can still say it is a dream. A retired baker, my poor Benedetto, is rich. He has an annuity." "Well, you have an annuity?" "I have." "Yes, since I bring you your 200 francs. Caderousse shrugged his shoulders. "It is humiliating," said he, "thus to receive money given grudgingly, an uncertain supply which may soon fail. You see, I am obliged to economize, in case your prosperity should cease. Well, my friend, fortune is inconstant, as the chaplain of the regiment said. I know your prosperity is great, you rascal. You are to marry the daughter of Danglars." "What? Of Danglars?" "Yes, to be sure. May I say Baron Danglars? I might as well say Count Benedetto. He was an old friend of mine, and if he had not so bad a memory, he ought to invite me to your wedding, seeing him came to mine. Yes, to mine. Gad, he was not so proud then. He was an underclerk to the good Monsieur Morel. I have dined many times with him and the Count of Morcerf. So you see, I have some high connections, and were I to cultivate them a little, we might meet in the same drawing-rooms." "Come, Your jealousy represents everything to you in the wrong light. That is all very fine, Benedetto mio, but I know what I'm saying. Perhaps I may one day put on my best coat and, presenting myself at the great gate, introduce myself. Meanwhile, let us sit down and eat. Caderousse set the example and attacked the breakfast with good appetite, praising each dish he set before his visitor. The latter seemed to have resigned himself. He drew the cocks and partook largely of the fish with the garlic and fat. "Ah, mate," said Caderousse, "you are getting on better terms with your old landlord." "Faith, yes," replied Andrea, whose hunger prevailed over every other feeling. "So you like it, you rogue?" "So much that I wonder how a man who can cook thus can complain of hard living." "Do you see," said Caderousse, "all my happiness is marred by one thought." "What is that?" "That I am dependent on another, I who have always gained my own livelihood honestly." "Do not let that disturb you. I have enough for two." "No, truly. You may believe me if you will. At the end of every month I am tormented by remorse." "Good Caderousse." "So much so that yesterday I would not take the 200 francs. "Yes, you wish to speak to me. But was it indeed remorse? Tell me." "True remorse, and besides, an idea had struck me." Andrea shuddered. He always did so at Caderousse's ideas. "It is miserable, do you see, always to wait till the end of the month." "Oh," said Andrea philosophically, determined to watch his companion narrowly. "Does not life pass in waiting? Do I, for instance, fare better? Well, I wait patiently, do I not?" "Yes, because instead of expecting 200 wretched francs, you expect 5 or 6,000, perhaps 10, perhaps even 12, for you take care not to let anyone know the utmost. Down there, you always had little presents and Christmas boxes, which you try to hide from your poor friend Caderousse. Fortunately, he is a cunning fellow, that friend Caderousse. There you are beginning again to ramble, to talk again and again of the past. But what is the use of teasing me with going all over that again? Ah, you are only 1 and 20, and can forget the past. I am 50, and am obliged to recollect it. But let us return to business." "Yes. I was going to say, if I were in your place, well, I would realize." "How would you realize?" "I would ask for 6 months in advance, under pretense of being able to purchase a farm. Then with my 6 months I would decamp." "Well, well," said Andrea, "that isn't a bad idea." "My dear friend," said Caderousse, "eat of my bread and take my advice. You will be none the worse off, physically or morally." "But," said Andrea, "why do you not act on the advice you gave me? Why do you not realize at 6 months, a year's advance even, and retire to Brussels? Instead of living the retired baker, you might live as a bankrupt using his privileges. That would be very good." "But how the devil would you have me retire on 1,200 francs? "Ah, Caderousse," said Andrea, "how covetous you are. 2 months ago you were dying with hunger." "The appetite grows by what it feeds on," said Caderousse, grinning and showing his teeth, like a monkey laughing or a tiger growling. "And," added he, biting off with his large white teeth an enormous mouthful of bread, "I have formed a plan." Caderousse's plans alarmed Andrea still more than his ideas. Ideas were but the germ. The plan was reality. "Let me see your plan. I dare say it is a pretty one." "Why not? Who formed the plan by which we left the establishment of M? Eh? Was it not I? And it was no bad one, I believe, since here we are." "I do not say," replied Andrea, "that you never make a good one, but let us see your plan." "Well," pursued Caderousse, "can you, without expending 1 sou, put me in the way of getting 15,000 francs? No, 15,000 are not enough. I cannot again become an honest man with less than 30,000 francs. "No," replied Andrea, dryly. "No, I cannot." "I do not think you understand me," replied Caderousse, calmly. "I said without your laying out a sou. Do you want me to commit a robbery, to spoil all my good fortune, and yours with mine, and both of us to be dragged down there again?" It would make very little difference to me, said Caderousse, if I were retaken. I am a poor creature to live alone, and sometimes pine for my old comrades, not like you, heartless creature, who would be glad never to see them again. Andrea did more than tremble this time. He turned pale. Come, Caderousse, no nonsense, said he. Don't alarm yourself, my little Benedetto, but just point out to me some means of gaining those 30,000 francs without your assistance, and I will contrive it. Well, I'll see. I'll try to contrive some way, said Andrea. Meanwhile, you will raise my monthly allowance to 500 francs, my little fellow. I have a fancy, and mean to keep a housekeeper. Well, you shall have your 500 francs, said Andrea, but it is very hard for me, my poor Caderousse. You take advantage. Ah, said Caderousse, when you have access to countless stores. One would have said Andrea anticipated his companion's words. So did his eye flash like lightning, but it was but for a moment. True, he replied, and my protector is very kind. That dear protector, said Caderousse, and how much does he give you monthly? 5,000 francs. As many thousands as you give me hundreds. Truly, it is only bastards who are thus fortunate. 5,000 francs per month. What the devil can you do with all that? Oh, it is no trouble to spend that, and I am like you. I want capital. Capital? Yes, I understand. Everyone would like capital. Well, and I shall get it. Who will give it to you? Your prince? Yes, my prince. But unfortunately, I must wait. You must wait for what? Asked Caderousse. For his death. The death of your prince? Yes. How so? Because he has made his will in my favor. Indeed. On my honor. For how much? For 500,000. Only that. It's little enough. But so it is. No, it cannot be. Are you my friend, Caderousse? Yes, in life or death. Well, I will tell you a secret. What is it? But remember. Ah, pardieu, mute as a carp. Well, I think. Andrea stopped and looked around. You think? Do not fear. Pardieu, we are alone. I think I have discovered my father. Your true father? Yes. Not old Cavalcanti. No, for he has gone again. The true one, as you say. And that father is? Well, Caderousse, it is Monte Cristo. Ah! Yes, you understand. That explains all. He cannot acknowledge me openly, it appears, but he does it through Monsieur Cavalcanti, and gives him 50,000 francs for it. 50,000 francs for being your father. I would have done it for half that, for 20,000, for 15,000. Why did you not think of me, ungrateful man? Did I know anything about it, when it was all done when I was down there? Ah, truly, and you say that by his will. He leaves me 500,000 livres. Are you sure of it? He showed it me, but that is not all. There is a codicil, as I said just now. Probably, and in that codicil he acknowledges me. Oh, the good father, the brave father, the very honest father, said Caderousse, twirling a plate in the air between his two hands. Now, say if I concealed anything from you. No, and your confidence makes you honorable in my opinion, and your princely father. Is he rich? Very rich? Yes, he is that. He does not himself know the amount of his fortune. Is it possible? It is evident enough to me, who am always at his house. The other day a banker's clerk brought him 50,000 francs in a portfolio about the size of your plate. Yesterday his banker brought him 100,000 francs in gold. Caderousse was filled with wonder. The young man's words sounded to him like metal, and he thought he could hear the rushing of cascades of louis. And you go into that house, cried he briskly. When I like. Caderousse was thoughtful for a moment. It was easy to perceive he was revolving some unfortunate idea in his mind. Then suddenly, how I should like to see all that, cried he. How beautiful it must be. It is, in fact, magnificent, said Andrea. And does he not live in the Champs-Élysées? Yes, number 30. Ah, said Caderousse, number 30. Yes, a fine house standing alone, between a courtyard and a garden. You must know it. Possibly, but it is not the exterior I care for. It is the interior. What beautiful furniture there must be in it. Have you ever seen the Tuileries? No. Well, it surpasses that. It must be worth one's while to stoop, Andrea, when that good Monsieur Monte Cristo lets fall his purse. It is not worthwhile to wait for that, said Andrea. Money is as plentiful in that house as fruit in an orchard. But you should take me there one day with you. How can I? On what plea? You are right, but you have made my mouth water. I must absolutely see it. I shall find a way. No nonsense, Caderousse. I will offer myself as floor polisher. The rooms are all carpeted. Well then, I must be contented to imagine it. That is the best plan, believe me. Try, at least, to give me an idea of what it is. How can I? Nothing is easier. Is it large? Middling. How is it arranged? Faith, I should require pen, ink, and paper to make a plan. They are all here, said Caderousse, briskly. He fetched from an old secretaire a sheet of white paper and pen and ink. Here, said Caderousse, draw me all that on the paper, my boy. Andrea took the pen with an imperceptible smile and began. The house, as I said, is between the court and the garden. In this way, do you see? Andrea drew the garden, the court, and the house. High walls, not more than 8 or 10 feet. That is not prudent, said Caderousse. In the court are orange trees in pots, turf, and clumps of flowers. And no steel traps? No. The stables are on either side of the gate, which you see there. And Andrea continued his plan. Let us see the ground floor, said Caderousse. On the ground floor, dining room, 2 drawing rooms, billiard room, staircase in the hall, and a little back staircase. Windows? Magnificent windows, so beautiful, so large, that I believe a man of your size should pass through each frame. Why the devil have they any stairs with such windows? Luxury has everything. But shutters? Yes, but they are never used. The Count of Monte Cristo is an original who loves to look at the sky even at night. And where do the servants sleep? Oh, they have a house to themselves. Picture to yourself a pretty coach house at the right-hand side where the ladders are kept. Well, over that coach house are the servants' rooms, with bells corresponding with the different apartments. Ah, diable! Bells, did you say? What do you mean? Oh, nothing. I only say they cost a load of money to hang, and what is the use of them, I should like to know. There used to be a dog let loose in a yard at night, but it has been taken to the house at Auteuil. To that you went too, you know. Yes, I was saying to him only yesterday, you are imprudent, Mr. Count, for when you go to Auteuil and take the servants, the house is left unprotected. Well, said he, what next? Well, next, some day you will be robbed. What did he answer? He quietly said, what do I care if I am? Andrea, he has some secretaire with a spring. How do you know? Yes, which catches the thief in a trap and plays a tune. I was told there were such at the last exhibition. He has simply a mahogany secretaire, in which the key is always kept. And he is not robbed? No, his servants are all devoted to him. There ought to be some money in that secretaire. There may be. No one knows what there is. And where is it? On the first floor. Sketch me the plan of that floor, as you have done of the ground floor, my boy. That is very simple. Andrea took the pen. On the first story, do you see, there is the anteroom and the drawing room. To the right of the drawing room, a library and a study. To the left, a bedroom and a dressing room. The famous secretaire is in the dressing room. Is there a window in the dressing room? 2, one here and one there. Andrea sketched 2 windows in the room, which formed an angle on the plan, and appeared as a small square added to the rectangle of the bedroom. Caderousse became thoughtful. Does he often go to Auteuil? Added he. 2 or 3 times a week. Tomorrow, for instance, he is going to spend a day and night there. Are you sure of it? He has invited me to dine there. There's a life for you, said Caderousse. A town house and a country house. That is what it is to be rich. And shall you dine there? Probably. When you dine there, do you sleep there? If I like, I am at home there. Caderousse looked at the young man, as if to get at the truth from the bottom of his heart. But Andrea drew a cigar case from his pocket, took a Havana, quietly lit it, and began smoking. When do you want your 1,200 francs? Said he to Caderousse. Now, if you have them. Andrea took 25 louis from his pocket. Yellow boys, said Caderousse. No, I thank you. Oh, you despise them. On the contrary, I esteem them, but will not have them. You can change them, idiot. Gold is worth 5 sous. Exactly, and he who changes them will follow friend Caderousse, lay hands on him, and demand what farmers pay him their rent in gold. No nonsense, my good fellow. Silver simply, round coins with the head of some monarch or other on them. Anybody may possess a 5-franc piece. But do you suppose I carry 500 francs about with me? I should want a porter. Well, leave them with your porter. He is to be trusted. I will call for them. Today? No, tomorrow. I shall not have time today. Well, tomorrow I will leave them when I go to Auteuil. May I depend on it? Certainly, because I shall secure my housekeeper on the strength of it. Now see here, will that be all, eh? And will you not torment me any more? Never. Caderousse had become so gloomy that Andrea feared he should be obliged to notice the change. He redoubled his gaiety and carelessness. How sprightly you are, said Caderousse. One would say you were already in possession of your property. No, unfortunately, but when I do obtain it, well, I shall remember old friends, I can tell you that. Yes, since you have such a good memory. What do you want? It looks as if you were trying to fleece me. I? What an idea! I, who am going to give you another piece of good advice. What is it? To leave behind you the diamond you have on your finger. We shall both get into trouble. You will ruin both yourself and me by your folly. How so? Said Andrea. How? You put on a livery. You disguise yourself as a servant, and yet keep a diamond on your finger worth 4,000 or 5,000 francs. You guess well. I know something of diamonds. I have had some. You do well to boast of it, said Andrea, who, without becoming angry, as Caderousse feared, at this new extortion, quietly resigned the ring. Caderousse looked so closely at it that Andrea well knew that he was examining to see if all the edges were perfect. It is a false diamond, said Caderousse. You are joking now, replied Andrea. Do not be angry. We can try it. Caderousse went to the window, touched the glass with it, and found it wood-cut. Confitio, said Caderousse, putting the diamond on his little finger. I was mistaken. But those thieves of jewelers imitate so well that it is no longer worthwhile to rob a jeweler's shop. It is another branch of industry paralyzed. Have you finished? Said Andrea. Do you want anything more? Will you have my waistcoat or my hat? Make free, now you have begun. No, you are, after all, a good companion. I will not detain you, and will try to cure myself of my ambition. But take care the same thing does not happen to you in selling the diamond you feared with the gold. I shall not sell it, do not fear. Not at least till the day after tomorrow, thought the young man. Happy road, said Caderousse. You are going to find your servants, your horses, your carriage, and your betrothed. Yes, said Andrea. Well, I hope you will make a handsome wedding present the day you marry Mademoiselle Danglars. I have already told you it is a fancy you have taken in your head. What fortune has she? But I tell you, 1 million? Andrea shrugged his shoulders. Let it be 1 million, said Caderousse. You can never have so much as I wish you. Thank you, said the young man. Oh, I wish it you with all my heart, added Caderousse with his hoarse laugh. Stop, let me show you the way. It is not worthwhile. Yes, it is. Why? Because there is a little secret, a precaution I thought it desirable to take. One of Eugénie and Fichet's locks, revised and improved by Gaspard Caderousse. I will manufacture you a similar one when you are a capitalist. Thank you, said Andrea. I will let you know a week beforehand. They parted. Caderousse remained on the landing until he had not only seen Andrea go down the 3 stories, but also cross the court. Then he returned hastily, shut his door carefully, and began to study, like a clever architect, the plan Andrea had left him. Dear Benedetta, said he, I think he will not be sorry to inherit his fortune, and he who hastens today when he can touch his 500,000 will not be his worst friend. Chapter 82. The Burglary. The day following that on which the conversation we have related took place, the Count of Monte Cristo set out for Auteuil, accompanied by Ali and several attendants, and also taking with him some horses whose qualities he was desirous of ascertaining. He was induced to undertake this journey, of which the day before he had not even thought, and which had not occurred to Andrea either, by the arrival of Bertuccio from Normandy with intelligence respecting the house and sloop. The house was ready, and the sloop, which had arrived a week before, lay at anchor in a small creek with her crew of 6 men, who had observed all the requisite formalities and were ready again to put to sea. The Count praised Bertuccio's zeal, and ordered him to prepare for a speedy departure, as his stay in France would not be prolonged more than a month. Now, said he, I may require to go in one night from Paris to Tréport. Let 8 fresh horses be in readiness on the road, which will enable me to go 50 leagues in 10 hours. Your Highness had already expressed that wish, said Bertuccio, and the horses are ready. I have bought them, and stationed them myself at the most desirable posts, that is, in villages where no one generally stops. That's well, said Monte Cristo. I'll remain here a day or 2. Arrange accordingly. As Bertuccio was leaving the room to give the requisite orders, Baptistin opened the door. He held a letter on a silver waiter. What are you doing here? Asked the Count, seeing him covered with dust. I did not send for you, I think. Baptistin, without answering, approached the Count and presented the letter. Important and urgent, said he. The Count opened the letter and read, Monsieur de Monte Cristo is apprised that this night a man will enter his house in the Champs-Élysées with the intention of carrying off some papers supposed to be in the secretaire in the dressing-room. The Count's well-known courage will render unnecessary the aid of the police, whose interference might seriously affect him who sends this advice. The Count, by any opening from the bedroom, or by concealing himself in the dressing-room, would be able to defend his property himself. Many attendants or apparent precautions would prevent the villain from the attempt, and Monsieur de Monte Cristo would lose the opportunity of discovering an enemy whom chance has revealed to him who now sends this warning to the Count. A warning he might not be able to send another time, if this first attempt should fail and another be made. The Count's first idea was that this was an artifice, a gross deception, to draw his attention from a minor danger in order to expose him to a greater. He was on the point of sending the letter to the commissary of police, notwithstanding the advice of his anonymous friend, or perhaps because of that advice, when suddenly the idea occurred to him that it might be some personal enemy, whom he alone should recognize and over whom, if such were the case, he alone would gain any advantage, as Fiesco had done over the Moor who would have killed him. We know the Count's vigorous and daring mind, denying anything to be impossible, with that energy which marks the great man. From his past life, from his resolution to shrink from nothing, the Count had acquired an inconceivable relish for the contests in which he had engaged, sometimes against nature, that is to say, against God, and sometimes against the world, that is, against the devil. They do not want my papers, said Monte Cristo. They want to kill me. They are no robbers, but assassins. I will not allow the prefect of police to interfere with my private affairs. I am rich enough, forsooth, to distribute his authority on this occasion. The Count recalled Baptistin, who had left the room after delivering the letter. Return to Paris, said he. Assemble the servants who remain there. I want all my household at Auteuil. But will no one remain in the house, my lord? Asked Baptistin. Yes, the porter. My lord will remember that the lodge is at a distance from the house. Well, the house might be stripped without his hearing the least noise. By whom? By thieves. You are a fool, Monsieur Baptistin. Thieves might strip the house. It would annoy me less than to be disobeyed. Baptistin bowed. You understand me, said the Count. Bring your comrades here, one and all, but let everything remain as usual. Only close the shutters of the ground floor. And those of the first floor? You know they are never closed. Go. The Count signified his intention of dining alone, and that no one but Ali should attend him. Having dined with his usual tranquillity and moderation, the Count, making a signal to Ali to follow him, went out by the side gate and on reaching the Bois de Boulogne turned, apparently without design, towards Paris, and at twilight found himself opposite his house in the Champs-Élysées. All was dark. One solitary, feeble light was burning in the porter's lodge, about 40 paces distant from the house, as Baptistin had said. Monte Cristo leaned against a tree, and with that scrutinizing glance which was so rarely deceived, looked up and down the avenue, examined the passers-by, and carefully looked down the neighboring streets, to see that no one was concealed. 10 minutes passed thus, and he was convinced that no one was watching him. He hastened to the side door with Ali, entered hurriedly, and by the servants' staircase, of which he had the key, gained his bedroom without opening or disarranging a single curtain, without even the porter having the slightest suspicion that the house, which he supposed empty, contained its chief occupant. Arrived in his bedroom, the Count motioned to Ali to stop. Then he passed into the dressing-room, which he examined. Everything appeared as usual. The precious secretaire in its place, and a key in the secretaire. He double-locked it, took the key, returned to the bedroom door, removed the double staple of the bolt, and went in. Meanwhile, Ali had procured the arms the Count required, namely, a short carbine and a pair of double-barreled pistols, with which as sure an aim might be taken as with a single-barreled one. Thus armed, the Count held the lives of 5 men in his hands. It was about 9:30. The Count and Ali ate in haste a crust of bread and drank a glass of Spanish wine. Then Monte Cristo slipped aside one of the movable panels, which enabled him to see into the adjoining room. He had within his reach his pistols and carbine, and Ali, standing near him, held one of the small Arabian hatchets, whose form has not varied since the Crusades. Through one of the windows of the bedroom, on a line with that in the dressing-room, the Count could see into the street. 2 hours passed thus. It was intensely dark. Still Ali, thanks to his wild nature, and the Count, thanks doubtless to his long confinement, could distinguish in the darkness the slightest movement of the trees. The little light in the lodge had long been extinct. It might be expected that the attack, if indeed an attack was projected, would be made from the staircase of the ground floor, and not from a window. In Monte Cristo's opinion, the villains sought his life, not his money. It would be his bedroom they would attack, and they must reach it by the back staircase, or by the window in the dressing-room. The clock of the Invalides struck 11:45. The west wind bore on its moistened gusts the doleful vibration of the 3 strokes. As the last stroke died away, the Count thought he heard a slight noise in the dressing-room. This first sound, or rather this first grinding, was followed by a second, then a third. At the fourth, the Count knew what to expect. A firm and well-practiced hand was engaged in cutting the 4 sides of a pane of glass with a diamond. The Count felt his heart beat more rapidly. Inured as men may be to danger, forewarned as they may be of peril, they understand, by the fluttering of the heart and the shuddering of the frame, the enormous difference between a dream and a reality, between the project and the execution. However, Monte Cristo only made a sign to apprise Ali, who, understanding that danger was approaching from the other side, drew nearer to his master. Monte Cristo was eager to ascertain the strength and number of his enemies. The window whence the noise proceeded was opposite the opening by which the Count could see into the dressing-room. He fixed his eyes on that window. He distinguished a shadow in the darkness. Then one of the panes became quite opaque, as if a sheet of paper were stuck on the outside. Then the square cracked without falling. Through the opening, an arm was passed to find the fastening, then a second. The window turned on its hinges, and a man entered. He was alone. "That's a daring rascal," whispered the Count. At that moment, Ali touched him slightly on the shoulder. He turned. Ali pointed to the window of the room in which they were, facing the street. "I see," said he. "There are two of them. One does the work while the other stands guard." He made a sign to Ali not to lose sight of the man in the street, and turned to the one in the dressing room. The glass cutter had entered, and was feeling his way, his arms stretched out before him. At last he appeared to have made himself familiar with his surroundings. There were two doors. He bolted them both. When he drew near to the bedroom door, Monte Cristo expected that he was coming in, and raised one of his pistols. But he simply heard the sound of the bolts sliding in their copper rings. It was only a precaution. The nocturnal visitor, ignorant of the fact that the Count had removed the staples, might now think himself at home, and pursue his purpose with full security. Alone and free to act as he wished, the man then drew from his pocket something which the Count could not discern, placed it on a stand, then went straight to the secretaire, felt the lock, and, contrary to his expectation, found that the key was missing. But the glass cutter was a prudent man who had provided for all emergencies. The Count soon heard the rattling of a bunch of skeleton keys, such as the locksmith brings when called to force a lock, and which thieves call nightingales, doubtless from the music of their nightly song when they grind against the bolt. "Aha!" whispered Monte Cristo, with a smile of disappointment. "He is only a thief." But the man in the dark could not find the right key. He reached the instrument he had placed on the stand, touched a spring, and immediately a pale light, just bright enough to render objects distinct, was reflected on his hands and countenance. "By heavens!" exclaimed Monte Cristo, starting back. "It is—" Ali raised his hatchet. "Don't stir," whispered Monte Cristo, "and put down your hatchet. We shall require no arms." Then he added some words in a low tone, for the exclamation which surprise had drawn from the Count, faint as it had been, had startled the man who remained in the pose of the old knife-grinder. It was an order the Count had just given, for immediately Ali went noiselessly, and returned bearing a black dress and a three-cornered hat. Meanwhile, Monte Cristo had rapidly taken off his greatcoat, waistcoat, and shirt, and one might distinguish by the glimmering through the open panel that he wore a plain tunic of steel mail, of which the last in France, where daggers are no longer dreaded, was worn by King Louis XVI, who feared the dagger at his breast, and whose head was cleft with a hatchet. The tunic soon disappeared under a long cassock, as did his hair under a priest's wig. The three-cornered hat over this effectually transformed the Count into an abbé. The man, hearing nothing more, stood erect, and while Monte Cristo was completing his disguise, had advanced straight to the secretaire, whose lock was beginning to crack under his nightingale. "Try again," whispered the Count, who depended on the secret spring, which was unknown to the picklock, clever as he might be. "Try again. You have a few minutes' work there." And he advanced to the window. The man whom he had seen seated on a fence had got down, and was still pacing the street. But, strange as it appeared, he cared not for those who might pass from the avenue of the Champs-Élysées or by the Faubourg Saint-Honoré. His attention was engrossed with what was passing at the Count's, and his only aim appeared to be to discern every movement in the dressing-room. Monte Cristo suddenly struck his finger on his forehead, and a smile passed over his lips. Then, drawing near to Ali, he whispered, "Remain here, concealed in the dark, and whatever noise you hear, whatever passes, only come in or show yourself if I call you." Ali bowed in token of strict obedience. Monte Cristo then drew a lighted taper from a closet, and when the thief was deeply engaged with his lock, silently opened the door, taking care that the light should shine directly on his face. The door opened so quietly that the thief heard no sound, but, to his astonishment, the room was suddenly illuminated. He turned. "Ah, good evening, my dear Mr. Caderousse. said Monte Cristo. What are you doing here at such an hour? The Abbé Busoni, exclaimed Caderousse, and, not knowing how this strange apparition could have entered when he had bolted the doors, he let fall his bunch of keys, and remained motionless and stupefied. The Count placed himself between Caderousse and the window, thus cutting off from the thief his only chance of retreat. The Abbé Busoni, repeated Caderousse, fixing his haggard gaze on the Count. Yes, undoubtedly, the Abbé Busoni himself, replied Monte Cristo, and I am very glad you recognize me, dear Monsieur Caderousse. It proves you have a good memory, for it must be about 10 years since we last met. This calmness of Busoni, combined with his irony and boldness, staggered Caderousse. The Abbé, murmured he, clenching his fists, and his teeth chattering. So you would rob the Count of Monte Cristo, continued the false abbé. Reverend sir, murmured Caderousse, seeking to regain the window, which the Count pitilessly blocked. Reverend sir, I don't know. Believe me, I take my oath. A pane of glass out, continued the Count, a dark lantern, a bunch of false keys, a secretaire half forced. It is tolerably evident. Caderousse was choking. He looked around for some corner to hide in, some way of escape. Come, continued the Count. I see you are still the same, an assassin. Reverend sir, since you know everything, you know it was not I, it was La Carconte. That was proved at the trial, since I was only condemned to the galleys. Is your time, then, expired, since I find you in a fair way to return there? No, Reverend sir, I have been liberated by someone. That someone has done society a great kindness. Ah, said Caderousse, I had promised. And you are breaking your promise, interrupted Monte Cristo. Alas, yes, said Caderousse very uneasily. A bad relapse. That will lead you, if I mistake not, to the Place de Grève. So much the worse, so much the worse. Diavolo, as they say in my country. Reverend sir, I am impelled. Every criminal says the same thing. Poverty. Sure, said Busoni disdainfully. Poverty may make a man beg, steal a loaf of bread at a baker's stall, but not cause him to open a secretaire in a house supposed to be inhabited. And when the jeweler Joannes had just paid you 45,000 francs for the diamond I had given you, and you killed him to get the diamond and the money both, was that also poverty? Pardon, Reverend sir, said Caderousse. You have saved my life once. Save me again. That is but poor encouragement. Are you alone, Reverend sir, or have you there soldiers ready to seize me? I am alone, said the abbé, and I will again have pity on you, and will let you escape, at the risk of the fresh miseries my weakness may lead to, if you tell me the truth. Ah, Reverend sir, cried Caderousse, clasping his hands, and drawing nearer to Monte Cristo, I may indeed say you are my deliverer. You mean to say you have been freed from confinement? Yes, that is true, Reverend sir. Who was your liberator? An Englishman. What was his name? Lord Wilmore. I know him. I shall know if you lie. Ah, Reverend sir, I tell you the simple truth. Was this Englishman protecting you? No, not me, but a young Corsican, my companion. What was this young Corsican's name? Benedetto. Is that his Christian name? He had no other. He was a foundling. Then this young man escaped with you? He did. In what way? We were working at Saint-Mandrier, near Toulon. Do you know Saint-Mandrier? I do. In the hour of rest, between noon and 1 o'clock, galley slaves having a nap after dinner, we may well pity the poor fellows, said the abbé. Nay, said Caderousse, one can't always work. One is not a dog. So much the better for the dogs, said Monte Cristo. While the rest slept, then, we went away a short distance. We severed our fetters with a file the Englishman had given us, and swam away. And what has become of this Benedetto? I don't know. You ought to know. No, in truth, we parted at Hyères, and to give more weight to his protestation, Caderousse advanced another step towards the abbé, who remained motionless in his place, as calm as ever, and pursuing his interrogation. "You lie," said the Abbé Busoni, with a tone of irresistible authority. "Reverend sir, you lie. This man is still your friend, and you, perhaps, make use of him as your accomplice." "Oh, reverend sir, since you left Toulon, what have you lived on? Answer me." "On what I could get." "You lie," repeated the abbé a third time, with a still more imperative tone. Caderousse, terrified, looked at the count. "You have lived on the money he has given you." "True," said Caderousse. "Benedetto has become the son of a great lord." "How can he be the son of a great lord?" "A natural son." "And what is that great lord's name?" "The Count of Monte Cristo, the very same in whose house we are." "Benedetto, the count's son," replied Monte Cristo, astonished in his turn. "Well, I should think so, since the count has found him a false father, since the count gives him 4,000 francs a month, and leaves him 500,000 francs in his will." "Ah, yes," said the factitious abbé, who began to understand. "And what name does the young man bear meanwhile?" "Andrea Cavalcanti." "Is it, then, that young man whom my friend, the Count of Monte Cristo, has received into his house, and who is going to marry Mademoiselle Danglars?" "Exactly." "And you suffer that, you wretch, you, who know his life and his crime." "Why should I stand in a comrade's way?" said Caderousse. "You are right. It is not you who should apprise Monsieur Danglars. It is I." "Do not do so, reverend sir." "Why not?" "Because you would bring us to ruin." "And you think that to save such villains as you I will become an abettor of their plot, an accomplice in their crimes?" "Reverend sir," said Caderousse, drawing still nearer, "I will expose all." "To whom?" "To Monsieur Danglars." "By heaven!" cried Caderousse, drawing from his waistcoat an open knife, and striking the count in the breast. "You shall disclose nothing, reverend sir." To Caderousse's great astonishment, the knife, instead of piercing the count's breast, flew back blunted. At the same moment the count seized with his left hand the assassin's wrist, and wrung it with such strength that the knife fell from his stiffened fingers, and Caderousse uttered a cry of pain. But the count, disregarding his cry, continued to wring the bandit's wrist until, his arm being dislocated, he fell first on his knees, then flat on the floor. The count then placed his foot on his head, saying, "I know not what restrains me from crushing thy skull, rascal." "Ah, mercy, mercy!" cried Caderousse. The count withdrew his foot. "Rise," said he. Caderousse rose. "What a wrist you have, reverend sir," said Caderousse, stroking his arm, all bruised by the fleshy pincers which had held it. "What a wrist!" "Silence! God gives me strength to overcome a wild beast like you. In the name of that God I act. Remember that, wretch, and to spare thee at this moment is still serving him." "Oh," said Caderousse, groaning with pain, "take this pen and paper, and write what I dictate." "I don't know how to write, reverend sir." "You lie. Take this pen, and write." Caderousse, awed by the superior power of the abbé, sat down and wrote, "Sir, the man whom you are receiving at your house, and to whom you intend to marry your daughter, is a felon who escaped with me from confinement at Toulon. He was number 59, and I number 58. He was called Benedetto, but he is ignorant of his real name, having never known his parents." "Sign it," continued the count. "But would you ruin me?" "If I sought your ruin, fool, I should drag you to the first guard house. Besides, when that note is delivered, in all probability you will have no more to fear. Sign it, then." Caderousse signed it. The address, to Monsieur the Baron Danglars, banker, Rue de la Chaussée-d'Antin. Caderousse wrote the address. The abbé took the note. "Now," said he, "that suffices. Be gone." "Which way?" "The way you came." "You wish me to get out at that window?" "You got in very well." "Oh, you have some design against me, reverend sir." "Idiot! What design can I have?" "Why, then, not let me out by the door?" what would be the advantage of waking the porter? Ah, reverend sir, tell me, do you wish me dead? I wish what God wills. But swear that you will not strike me as I go down. Cowardly fool! What do you intend doing with me? I ask you, what can I do? I have tried to make you a happy man, and you have turned out a murderer. Oh, monsieur, said Caderousse, make one more attempt. Try me once more. I will, said the Count. Listen, you know if I may be relied on. Yes, said Caderousse, if you arrive safely at home. What have I to fear, except from you? If you reach your home safely, leave Paris, leave France, and wherever you may be, so long as you conduct yourself well, I will send you a small annuity. For if you return home safely, then, asked Caderousse, shuddering, then I shall believe God has forgiven you, and I will forgive you too. As true as I am a Christian, stammered Caderousse, you will make me die of fright. Now be gone, said the Count, pointing to the window. Caderousse, scarcely yet relying on this promise, put his legs out of the window and stood on the ladder. Now go down, said the Abbé, folding his arms. Understanding he had nothing more to fear from him, Caderousse began to go down. Then the Count brought the taper to the window, that it might be seen in the Champs-Élysées that a man was getting out of the window while another held a light. What are you doing, reverend sir? Suppose a watchman should pass. And he blew out the light. He then descended, but it was only when he felt his foot touch the ground that he was satisfied of his safety. Monte Cristo returned to his bedroom, and, glancing rapidly from the garden to the street, he saw first Caderousse, who, after walking to the end of the garden, fixed his ladder against the wall at a different part from where he came in. The Count then, looking over into the street, saw the man who appeared to be waiting run in the same direction, and place himself against the angle of the wall where Caderousse would come over. Caderousse climbed the ladder slowly and looked over the coping to see if the street was quiet. No one could be seen or heard. The clock of the Invalides struck 1. Then Caderousse sat astride the coping, and drawing up his ladder, passed it over the wall. Then he began to descend, or rather to slide down by the 2 stanchions, which he did with an ease which proved how accustomed he was to the exercise. But once started, he could not stop. In vain did he see a man start from the shadow when he was halfway down. In vain did he see an arm raised as he touched the ground. Before he could defend himself, that arm struck him so violently in the back that he let go the ladder, crying, "Help!" A second blow struck him almost immediately in the side, and he fell, calling, "Help! Murder!" Then, as he rolled on the ground, his adversary seized him by the hair and struck him a third blow in the chest. This time Caderousse endeavored to call again, but he could only utter a groan, and he shuddered as the blood flowed from his 3 wounds. The assassin, finding that he no longer cried out, lifted his head up by the hair. His eyes were closed, and the mouth was distorted. The murderer, supposing him dead, let fall his head and disappeared. Then Caderousse, feeling that he was leaving him, raised himself on his elbow, and with a dying voice cried with great effort, "Murder! I am dying! Help, reverend sir, help!" This mournful appeal pierced the darkness. The door of the back staircase opened, then the side gate of the garden, and Ali and his master were on the spot with rats.